Hey, hello everybody. We're finishing up chapter 4 today on demand. We're going to be talking about demand elasticity, and I'm going to, let's see, I want to go ahead and make this full screen. There we go. Okay, all right, so let's get started with this. Oh, wait, this isn't full screen. Hang on. All right, let's get into it. All right, there are basically three cases of demand elasticity. But first of all, we need to talk about what the heck is elasticity. Okay, so elasticity is basically a measure of responsiveness. It tells us how a dependent variable, like the quantity demanded or quantity supplied, which we'll talk about next chapter, that's chapter 5. Okay, we're going to see how they respond to a change in price, which is an independent variable. Okay, so demand elasticity is basically defined as the extent to which a change in price causes a change in the quantity demanded. So demand elasticity basically has three cases: elastic, inelastic, and unit elastic. Okay, and I'm going to adjust this camera just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I kind of like to think about elasticity like a rubber band. Okay, so there's the picture down there below. Okay, elasticity is a lot like a rubber band. So basically, we're testing to see how stretchy is the demand, how flexible is demand when there is a change in price. So let's jump in and see what these mean. Okay, so basically, elastic demand. Okay, demand is considered to be elastic, or in other words, really flexible when a change in price causes a relatively larger change in the quantity demanded. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the demand for a product is really stretchy. Okay, so it's elastic if the quantity demanded changes drastically with a small change in price. So let's say ink pens. The demand for ink pens is 6. So people will buy 6 ink pens if the price of the ink pens is 50 cents each. Okay, but if the price increases to $1, then the quantity demanded drops to 2. That's a big stretch, right? Okay, that's a big stretch. Somebody took that rubber band and really stretched it out there. It's a big change. Okay, that's elasticity. Okay, when there is a big change, that's elasticity. Okay, so this demand for pens is definitely elastic. Okay. And so an elastic curve, so remember, our demand curve is always sloped from left to right downward, right? And so an elastic demand curve is very sloped, okay? So an elastic demand curve is going to be a little bit more towards horizontal. So like the one that you have there, like my hand here, okay? So the more elastic something is, okay, then the more the demand curve will start to lay a bit flat. Okay, so that's how you identify, that's how you identify a demand curve for an elastic product or service. Okay. All right, so inelastic demand then is the opposite. Inelastic demand is said to be, or demand is said to be inelastic when a change in price causes a relatively small change in the quantity demanded. So gasoline is one of the best examples of this. Gasoline is said to be generally inelastic because no matter how much the price changes, the quantity demanded stays relatively the same. Why? Well, because how much you drive doesn't depend on the cost of gasoline necessarily. If you have to commute to work every day, your demand for gasoline doesn't change unless you can find someone to carpool with. Then your demand for gasoline will change some, but not a whole lot. So even if prices get up to close to $4 a gallon here in California, the demand remains relatively the same. And so that is demonstrated by a nearly vertical demand curve, like the example you have there. So the more vertical, so if your demand curve, instead of looking like this, which would be elastic, if it starts to look a little bit more like a straight up and down line, a vertical line, that means your product or your service is inelastic. So it doesn't matter how you change the price, raise it, lower it, your demand is going to change just a little bit. Okay, then unit elasticity, and this one is a little bit more complicated, okay? So unit elasticity, unit demand is when a change in price causes a proportional change in quantity, okay? So if we're talking about dollars and cents here, so if a price goes down by $1, then that means the amount demanded will also increase by one. If the price goes up by $1, then that means the demand will decrease by one. That's unit, okay? So the example we have here, hot Cheetos, right? We've talked about hot Cheetos, very popular product, okay? Hot Cheetos are, the demand for hot Cheetos is $4, or 4 at $2, okay? Now, if the price changes to $3, the demand changes to 3. That's unit elasticity, okay? If the price drops to 1, then the demand changes to 5. See, 4 to 5, that's 1 unit. 4 to, I can't make my fingers do that, 3. Yeah, I know, I can't really do that. I had surgery on my hand. I can't do that with this hand. I can with this hand. Okay, so 4 to 3 is also 1 unit. 4 to 5 is 1 unit, okay? So notice that the dollar change, so it changes by $1, it changes by the unit the same way, okay? So that's unit elastic demand, okay? So this graph kind of demonstrates that a little bit here too. It's not the best one, but it was the best I could find. All right, so total expenditures. I really don't like that the book uses the term expenditures because in college and in other textbooks that I've taught with, we refer to it as revenue. But I understand why the change, because demand is supposed to be the point of view of the consumer. And so from the consumer's point of view, it's expenditure. So how much money are we spending? How much are we expending of our financial resource? It's just harder for me to think about expenditure because I'm so used to thinking of it as revenue, okay? So it's the same thing. So one way that we can estimate elasticity is to compare the direction of price change to the direction of quantity demanded, okay? So again, I'm going to be saying total revenue because that's what I'm used to, okay? So basically to determine total revenue, you have to multiply the price by the total quantity demanded at any point along the demand curve. Okay, we'll see some examples of that. So revenue, the word revenue, okay, this is one that we're going to be using a lot, especially when we talk about taxes here in a little while. Revenue is any money that's being taken in. Okay, it's not the same as profit. It's just pure money taken in. Okay, so really profit is revenue minus expenses. That gives you profit. Okay, but that's a whole nother lesson. Okay, so revenue, money taken in, okay? All right, so I want you to take a look at this, and I'm going to slide my shelf over a little bit and see where I'm not in the way here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm not in the way here. All right, so let's look at this demand curve, okay? So we've got this demand curve here for coffee. This is demand for coffee, okay? So if we look at point A, okay, point A, for $3 each, we can sell 12 cups of coffee. That's the demand. So the demand for coffee is 12 at $3 a piece, okay? So to find the total revenue, you would take 3 times 12, right? $3 times 12 units. That gives us 36. So our total revenue for coffee at $3 a cup is $36, okay? So if we look at this demand curve, we go to point B, okay? So point B is $2 per cup. Well, we're going to increase it up to 16, okay? So now our total revenue is 32, okay? So if you were the coffee shop owner, which looks better to you? $36 in revenue or $32 in revenue? Okay? So that's some real life thinking right there, okay? Let's look at the next one, okay? See if I can move myself around a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so total revenue with elastic demand. Okay, so the last one that we looked at, and in fact, let me try to go back here because I forgot to make that comment. Okay, this is inelastic demand. Okay, so this change wasn't very much. right, from 12 to 16 really isn't a big change in quantity demanded. So this is considered inelastic, and we'll also see again in a minute uh, why also that this is considered inelastic. Okay, so here's elastic demand. Okay, so how to predict total revenue with elastic demand. Okay, so point A, $1. Okay, for whatever this product is, you can sell, the demand is 3. Okay, so that's $3 total revenue. But if we change the price, we drop the price to 75 cents. Look at what a big difference that makes. This is very elastic, ladies and gentlemen. So what that means is that this very little change in price caused a huge change in demand. Okay, and so look at this. So $3 to $6.75, it has more than doubled the total revenue that you're taking in. Okay, so this is a big deal. So again, if you were the producer, which would you prefer to do? Would you prefer to sell your product, whatever this product is, at 75 cents per unit, or at $1? Looks like you're going to be making more money if you sell it for 75 cents. Okay, and so this is how businesses make these kinds of decisions. Okay, so elastic demand. Okay, when you have elastic demand, the change in price and the change in revenue move in opposite directions. Okay, so if the price goes up, the total revenue goes down. Okay, if the price goes down, the total revenue goes up. All right, in unit elastic demand, no change. Okay, but in inelastic, a change in price and a change in revenue move in the same direction. Okay, so here's a nice little diagram that you can look at, copy later, um, and have that if you'd like to in your notes. Okay, so what if you're in business? Okay, how would you use this information if you're in business? Well, it'll help you to decide how to maximize your product. Okay, how to maximize your profits. Okay, so if you have a product or service that is elastic, you want to be real careful on how you adjust your prices. If you adjust your prices up, you could lose customers and lose money, lose profit. But if you drop your price some, depending on how elastic the product is, you could stand to make a lot of money. Okay, um, but if your product is inelastic, you're going to have to really be careful how you move those prices around. Okay, or actually, no, if you're inelastic, you don't have to worry. Okay, so think of medical field, right? Okay, it doesn't matter how much the prescription costs; people are still going to buy it, right? Because they have to. Sometimes, if it's a life-saving drug, they're going to have to pay that money, right? Or a procedure. So that's one of the reasons why medical care, the medical field, is so expensive. Okay, is because they know that we need it, and we'll pay whatever price that there is for it, and insurance will pay that price. Okay, so things to think about, folks. Okay, so what causes demand elasticity? There are factors that determine a product's demand elasticity. So let's take a look at those. Okay. So first of all, the first question, these are each questions. Okay, there's 3 questions that we're going to ask ourselves. Can the purchase be delayed is the first question. Okay, can the purchase be delayed? If you say no, then the product is inelastic. So if you have to buy it right now, like you blew a tire and you need another tire for your car, that's inelastic. So you're not going to be very sensitive to the price. You need a tire. Okay, so medication, medical procedures, like I said, plumbing repairs. That's a little bit personal right now. Gasoline. Okay, like I said, you have any kind of an emergency happen where you need to buy a product or you need a service, then that's probably going to be inelastic. Okay, but if you answer yes, the purchase of the product can be delayed, then it is elastic. That means you don't really need it right now, and you can wait till there's a better price for it. That's basically what that means. Okay. Are adequate substitutes available? Are there substitutes that are available? Okay. Are adequate substitutes? Okay. So anything that you can use in replace of the main product. Okay, so if you answer yes, again, then the product or service is elastic. Okay, if there are lots of substitutes, then you can switch back and forth between the substitutes to get the better price. Okay, and so that means that if the price changes on your number one product, then there is a substitute available. Okay, um, you know, so if Oreo cookies, all of a sudden the price of Oreo cookies goes up really, really, really high, I'm going to start buying Chips Ahoy. Until Chips Ahoy prices go up and Oreos come down. Okay, as long as there is a substitute available, um, then I can take advantage of whichever is going to give me the best price. Okay, if there are not adequate substitutes available, okay, if I like peanut butter and I don't believe that almond butter or any other nut butter is the same as peanut butter, then my demand for that is inelastic, and it doesn't matter how much the price changes. I'm going to be buying that, and if there aren't any substitutes available, then I'm stuck with it. Okay. Does the purchase use a large portion of income? Okay, so here's where we get to budgeting. So if the amount is large, if the purchase price is really large, then the demand tends to be elastic. Think about when people go car shopping. Usually people spend a lot of time, days, weeks. I have a brother-in-law that literally spends months doing research and looking and waiting until the prices get just right before he buys a car, okay, or a truck or whatever it is that he's buying, before he buys an automobile. Okay, so it uses a large portion of income, so your demand for the product changes drastically based on a change in the price. Okay, housing, however, okay, housing is a whole nother thing, right? So housing is a big income, right? Housing, cars, big deal. Pepper, though, okay, seasoning, pepper, the black stuff, black pepper. I'm white, so salt and pepper is about all we use. No, I actually have more taste than that. I use things called seasonings and herbs and stuff like that. Yeah. So anyway, so think about pepper, okay, or you could even say salt, something really basic like that. Milk, maybe butter, anything that your family buys pretty frequently, pretty regularly. Um, that you just can't do without. Okay, if the price of pepper, for example, if it were to double, most people would still buy it because it's such a small part of a family's budget. So pepper is pretty much inelastic. No matter how much the price changes, people are still going to buy it. But a house, how much a price in a house changes, um, that will affect very much how much the demand is. Okay? And yeah, so that's it. We are now at the end of chapter 4. Okay, so make sure you took good notes and make sure you review your notes before the quiz. You will be having a quiz later this week, so make sure you are ready for that. Okay, and then other than that, all I have to say is peace out, and we'll see you.